flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Mr. Sauer, the termination of a quorum.
Madam President, all 5 directors are here. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, we have to go down the line.
Aye.
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 All ayes. Gil, if we're all ayes, do we have to actually do a roll call?
No.
Okay, thank you. Public comment. Is there going to be public comment? If there, yeah, okay. I won't read it if we wouldn't. Members of the public may address the board at this time with regard to matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not listed on the agenda. State law prohibits the board of directors from discussing or taking action on items not included on the agenda. Members of the public will have the opportunity for public comment on any item listed on the agenda when it is addressed on the agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. Okay, public comment.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
My name is Peter Sullivan. I spoke at the last meeting of the Water Board. I would like to say hello to the board members. And I would like to specifically thank Victoria Fuller for getting back to me very promptly about my question about the reason for the ethnic question on the questionnaire. She made it clear that the reason for that was because in order to get government funding, you need to know what the ethnic diversification of the community is. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. Now, I feel like I'm in the 8th grade and I'm giving my dissertation on something or other. It's very uncomfortable until you do it the second time. Then it's a little more comfortable. So, the reason I came before was because I was having a very difficult time getting a permit for a water meter because it was an unusual situation. I'll explain that to you. I have been a 20-plus year resident of Joshua Tree. I bought last summer a piece of land right next to mine. Did not commingle the land. It's 8.2 acres. It's sat fallow since the beginning of time. I had to get, it didn't even have a street address. So when I came to get a water permit, I was told, well, first you have to have a street address. So I went and did that. Then they told me you have to do this and do this. What I said last time was that it was a very adversarial system that you had for getting back to me back and forth. There was no communication, there were no phone calls. So I got through all that, got my permit, gave the permit here, and then I was told, well, we're going to get you your water permit. Somebody will contact you. So nobody contacted me for a month. I understand people are on vacation, so I just waited and waited. Then this morning I came down here and said, why hasn't anybody called me or talked to me about this? What happens? An hour later I get the first phone call. You know what? Do I have to come down here every time and speak to the board to get contact with this? This is not the way I think this should be run. But I'm not running your business, you guys are. So anyhow, at this point, today, the people came up and, because I was told, you're going to get your water meter. The 2 guys who came up didn't know what was going on. I knew right away they were going to get my water meter. They didn't even have a backhoe. They have to tap into the water line to get me a water meter. They didn't know what was going on. You know what? The right hand is not talking to the left hand. I guess I'm done.
Let him continue.
Yeah.
Continue.
Okay, so in other words, nobody's talking to anybody else. Nobody told the guys that came up that you're going to have to tap into the existing infrastructure, meaning the water pipe that goes right up the street, and tap into that and and get me my water meter. So why isn't anybody talking to anybody and explaining to him? I understand you guys can't answer my questions at this point, but shouldn't they have known that you're going to have to bring a backhoe to do this job and all these? it's a comedy of errors. And I don't think this is the way things should be run. I do understand that this is kind of an unusual permit that I was asking for. I didn't ask for very often because most everybody already has a permit and they either want it turned back on or something like this. So to get a brand new water permit, water meter is kind of new and unusual. My point is, I guess, is that your business is delivering us water, and you give us very good water, some of the best I've ever had, no doubt about it. But shouldn't you make it easier for us to get that water? And shouldn't, when I come in and say, I got a new piece of land, I need a water meter, shouldn't you be going out of your way to make that process easier for me and not such an adversarial process that I went through? I'm going to rip out a little bit of hair I have gone through this. Now, I started this process. I bought the piece of land in summertime, so it's been months and months and months. The water meter should have been put in a long time ago. I do understand that it takes time to get these things done, and I understand that, and I've tried to work with you guys. But when you don't call me back, I mean common courtesy, call me back, talk to me, tell me that, yeah, we won't be able to get this done for a couple of weeks. I can deal with that, but the silence is deafening.
Thank you.
I think that's about all I have to say. And I thank you very much. And again, thank you so much for getting back to me. I have a feeling that the social media was of a great help in making that happen. And I thank you much. I'm not going to stick around for a reply or anything, but I thank you very much.
Yes.
Good night. We'll talk later.
Okay, I think that maybe we could,
I'd like to respond
I
to
think
you.
that Kurt would like to
Okay.
respond.
Peter, I disagree with you that there was adversarial going forward or looking back, because we gave you information. You went to Department of Public Health rather than Building and Safety. Public Health contacted us. We gave them a copy of the permit that we requested you to get by going to Building and Safety. You then went to Land Use Services. They told you they don't handle it. And eventually you ended up at the right place. And that was all taken care of. And when you came in at the last meeting, everything was in place. I found out today, and this is where I wanted you to stay.
Oh, okay.
I found out that today Peggy Agnew is the one that you talked with.
Right.
Our customer service person. She went back and found out that you came in on December 14th and brought in all of the paperwork, you paid the fees, and that meter should have been installed. We failed to generate a work order on December 14th, and we didn't have it in the system until you came in today. So I want to apologize to you on behalf of my water district and the board of directors and the people that work here. We made an error on December 14th, didn't do it properly, and we should have. And you should have had a meter. We will be looking for that meter box tomorrow, because where they looked at it today, there is no meter box, even though that's what the books show. And Val, our primary customer service person, thinks that it may be on Buttonwood, but we will have a crew out there tomorrow, and we will install your water meter. And I apologize for the delay.
I thank you very much for that apology. I'm going to answer you. The property we're talking about is on Rincon or Turtle Road, depending upon who you talk to. I personally know that the water line runs right up that road, so that you have to tap into it, and literally the property is 10 feet away. Why what are you talking about as being on Buttonwood? Is that, you mean there's an
Because
option
there's
that
a-
you want to tap into on Buttonwood versus that pipe that runs up Turtle
Yeah,
/
there's a
Rincon Road?
possibility that when the remote meters were put in the 60s for that area, that a remote meter was put in on Buttonwood that goes to that property. So we're going to look into it. It doesn't make any sense that a remote meter would have been put in on Buttonwood, because the property does front Rincon Turtle.
Right.
So we'll look at it and we'll put it in the right place.
I must answer you about the adversarial process. I came in here months and months ago to try to get this done, and every time I talked to somebody about this, I was met with, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. Or do it this way, or do it that way. You know, it would have been so much easier if one of the ladies who works out here had a little book that if I said, look, I have a piece of land that's never had a water meter on it as far as I know, could have opened it up and said, well, here's the process that you need to go through. You need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, instead of, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that. I just think the system needs to be somehow modified so that it's easier for a new customer or a new time. I mean, I'm an old customer. I've been here for over 25 years, so. But when you get a new piece of land that doesn't have water, and I know that this is a rare situation, I understand that. But I just think it would have been so much easier if I'd been greeted more with in a friendly attitude instead of an adversarial attitude. And it really was an adversarial attitude, believe me. Part of this is my fault because of the way I reacted to it. I got mad right away because I wasn't receiving the kind of feedback that I was hoping to from a water board that's trying to. I mean, you guys are trying to sell me water. That's your job.
I understand, and outside of the board meeting, if you want to come in and discuss it, I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you.
Okay, I thank you very much for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Peter.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will go to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be adopted in total by one action of the Board of Directors unless any board member or any individual or organization interested in one or more consent calendar items wishes to be heard. Do I have a motion for the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? We don't need to do a roll call. Yes. All right. We will go on to item number 7, the 15-16 audit presentation from Fedak and Brown LLP, and Chris Brown is going to be the presenter. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year. Okay, as you can see, we have a slideshow here. Basically, just kind of want to go over the audit itself. There again, my name is Chris Brown. I'm one of the principals with Fedak and Brown. Just to familiarize everybody with the audit process itself, what we're actually doing, it's a risk-based audit. Basically, we're looking at the various cycles, the various functions within the accounting process, develop an understanding of the district's internal controls. What that means is we look at how you do things. We compare it to best practices and such. We perform tests of accounting transactions. What that relates to is we make on a sample basis selections of accounting transactions, and we test them, looking at the way the transaction was processed through the system and whether it met your own internal policies. Okay. When it's all said and done, we assess the risk and design the audit programs. And the audit programs are basically the guideline of how we're going to perform the audit, the steps we're going to take when we come to do final field work. And that's what we're referring to here. Final field work is done after your year end, and in this case, it's June 30th. What we're essentially doing is we're agreeing the ending balances to the supporting documentation, your cash balances to your bank reconciliations, your accounts receivable to the subsidiary ledgers, your capital assets to all the activity in the subsidiary ledgers. Basically, we're tying everything in to the transactions in detail. Okay? We're also performing analysis of key relationships. We're looking for the relationships within the financial statements themselves. There are certain relationships that if something goes up in this area, you're going to see a corresponding movement in another area. That's essentially the process. Okay? When it's all said and done, there are a couple reports that are prepared. We work in cooperation with management. There are two reports. The center button do a laser, or I don't know if it would work anyway. But the first two, the one on top, the one in the middle there, these are reports that actually appear in the financial statements themselves. Okay, the top one is the auditor's opinion, and it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Joshua Basin Water District as of June 30th, 2016. So it's a clean opinion. So congratulations on that. The next item down is independent auditor's report performed in accordance with government auditing standards. Essentially what it does is it discloses that the auditor takes internal control into consideration when performing the audit itself. Okay. The last item that you see there is a separate report from the financial statements. It's the report to management on financial reporting matters. It's the management report. Okay. It does two things. It discusses any suggestions we have for improvements, and it also communicates to you, those charged with governance. We're required under the auditing standards to communicate to you certain matters, and amongst those are our responsibility as the auditor, the scope of the audit, qualitative aspects of accounting practices, management's judgments and accounting estimates, corrected and uncorrected misstatements. At the very back of the report, you'll see that if there were any journal entries made as part of the audit, they will be included in there, and I'm very happy to say there were no journal entries outside of the pension GASB 68 journal entries. So from my perspective, it's totally clean. There were no additional journal entries. Okay. Also, management's consultation with other accountants. You are my boss. I report to you. I don't report to management. And I always want you to be aware of what's going on at all times. And if there's been a consultation to an outside CPA firm with regard to any particular item, I want you to be aware of it. Most likely you would be aware of it, but if you weren't aware of it, you need to be. I'm happy to say there were none. Okay. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit. Here again, very happy to say that there were no difficulties and there were no disagreements with management. As a side note, Jonathan Abadesco was the manager on the engagement, and I spoke to him before I came out, and he wished me to thank management, the accounting staff, and the board for all the assistance. It went really well. He was very happy and pleased with the process this year. So once again, thank you very much for that. Okay. Did a really good job. Kind of tracking back to the journal entries, it's very rare that we run into a situation where there are no additional journal entries. So clean books is excellent. Excellent. Okay, just kind of a side note, this doesn't really affect you a whole lot. There are a couple of new GASBs, and GASBs are Government Accounting Standards Boards. That body is basically the rule-setting body for government accounting. Okay? And there are two new GASB pronouncements, number 72 and 79. I won't go into detail, but basically the objective is to improve financial reporting for things like pooled funds, like LAIF. You're probably familiar with LAIF, local area, finance, and investment pools or individual investments. There again, it didn't really affect you a lot because your investments are relatively straightforward investments in LAIF and such. But I wanted you to be aware that there was these new pronouncements. Okay, I'm gonna, if you want to, it's up to you. If you want to, I'm going to be looking at what appears to be page 20 of 74 in the packet. I'll work off of this. But essentially, what that table is, it's the same one you can see up there, and this is the condensed statements of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. It's basically your profit and loss statement. Okay. The way it's grouped is by major area, your revenues and your expenses, capital contributions, and ultimately your net position at the end of the year. There again, it's grouped according to the type of transactions. So we have your revenues. I'm going to do a little comparison from year to year. I won't go into a lot of detail. If you have questions, let me know. But as you can see at the very top, total revenues, and that's comprised of operating and non-operating. Total revenues increased by approximately $166,804 to $5,388,405. So we saw an increase in the total revenues. Of those revenues, operating revenues, or those activities that are related to water, okay, operating, increased by approximately $143,720, primarily due to a $128,000 increase in water service charges. So seeing the effect of consumption and rates there, so positive results. Non-operating revenues, those are going to be items that interest earnings, property taxes, and things like that. And you can see comparing one year to the next, and I'm referring to the 2016 and 2015 column on this page. Non-operating revenues increased by $23,084, primarily due to an increase in property tax revenues of approximately $39,000, investment earnings of $23,000, and other non-operating revenues of approximately $44,000, which was offset by a decrease in special assessment for debt service. So all in all, your increase was approximately $23,000 as compared to the prior year. The next grouping is expenses. Expenses there again, it's comprised of operating and non-operating. And we saw an increase of approximately, I'll just go ahead and give it to you, $1,026,802 to $6,333,238. Of those total expenses, operating expenses, there again, those expenses related to what you do, selling water essentially. Operating expenses increased by approximately $920,000, primarily due to an $838,000 increase in pumping, production, and treatment costs. So it's going to be replenishment, water, and pumping costs primarily is what's causing that. Okay. And approximately $79,521 in transmission and distribution expense. Okay. Non-operating expenses decreased by approximately $10,000 since it's such a minor amount compared to the prior year. I didn't note the detail. Capital contributions, there was a fairly large change from the prior year. It actually decreased from the prior year by $855,160, and that's essentially because you did not receive state grant funding that you received in the prior year. That was approximately $891,000. Big picture, net position, when it's all said and done, as we work our way from the revenues, expenses, and capital contributions, your change in net position, which is essentially your net income or net loss. Okay. It actually decreased by $909,917 to a net position of $36,547,848. But I will note, let me go ahead and go to this prior page, and if you flip back, if you want to go that route, or if you just want to look at this, that's on the screen. Area that I'm always interested in is at the very bottom there. You know, your assets minus your liabilities is your net position. And net position is essentially your net worth, okay, what you have available. With certain caveats, we can see that unrestricted, that last item there actually increased from the prior year by the $223,078. That's positive results. That's saying that it's all said and done, that even though the effect of your loss, okay, you do have an increased unrestricted net position or usable assets, there again with certain caveats, positive $223,078. So there again, that's something that I look at. I look for the trends in that number itself. Okay. That's pretty much the overview. I know I threw a lot of numbers at you. Again, I'm sorry I didn't make it to the prior meeting. I appreciate your understanding, but I just wanted to go through some of those numbers and see if you had any questions on them themselves. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board?
No, myself, I would just like to say that the no journal entries are outstanding. What a great job. And we're getting used to you doing a great job. So. Thank you.
You're amazing.
Excellent.
Setting a high,
Nope.
high
I think
bar
we've
there.
pretty much killed the questions on here, for me anyway.
No, I don't have any.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
All right.
thank you. Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
out.
Yeah. And thanks to Ann and her crew for doing just a bang-up job, because if she
Yes.
didn't, what Chris reported wouldn't have been nearly as positive. Thank you very much, Chris.
Do you wish me to stay, or?
No, we don't have to.
public
We'll see you again next year.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to do public comment?
Oh, is there any public comment before he goes? Okay, Tom?
This will be an easy one.
Oh, okay.
Tom Flo and ratepayer. I was just interested in what Fedek and Brown's general customer base or client base is? Just a little brief description of where they come from,
Okay.
sort of.
It's a good question. Actually, we are a smaller size firm, but our expertise is in special districts and most specifically water districts. We have approximately 45 water districts that we, as clients throughout the state, everything from very small ones to some very large, an example, everything from high valleys up here on the way to Idlewild to Castaic Lake Water Agency. That is our specialty. We have a lot of experience in that particular area, and one of the advantages of that is we're able to bring information and share information from our client community to all our clients.
Thank you.
Anything else from the audience? No. Thank you again. Oh,
Cookie, yeah, with 45 clients, what kind of staff does that require?
Currently, we have 8 government staff. That's actually, we're looking to add to our staffing, but ideally 10, but 8 is what we currently have. So,
I think you're getting a lot of bang for your buck if only 10 people handle 45 clients.
yes. But it's spread over a year's time, so not every year end is a 6:30. So, yeah, yeah, we're right in that sweet spot right now.
okay.
So, okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Safe trip.
Thanks, Greg.
Take care.
We will move on to item number 8, surplus property update. And I will turn it over to Mr. Sauer.
Okay, so the recommendations that the board approved, the updated surplus property procedures. In November, the board directed the general manager to update the procedures and bring it back to you. The surplus property procedures they live in what's called the Joshua Basin Water District bidding procedures document as section 4, which was written in about 2005. We're not proposing any changes to sections 1 through 3 of the bidding procedures. And the existing and proposed surplus property procedures were attached in your board packet. Basically, the procedure that I'm recommending the board adopt is modeled after the High Desert Surplus Property Procedure and also generally follows our sister water agencies in the Morongo Basin. It's straightforward, simple, and I believe it will free up staff time and produce additional revenues for the district as compared to the way we used to do business. So the changes to the surplus properties, 4.1 and 4.2 are the same. 4.3, I deleted the old and put in that surplus personal property must be so declared by motion of the board of directors, which contains a description of the property. So we have to come to the board to declare property surplus. That's still gives the board discretion on that. And then the selling and disposing surplus property will be sold or disposed by the GM in the following manner. Surplus property will be sold through an auction house or at a publicly noticed sale subject to sealed bids with the highest bidder taking title. And employees and officers of the district may not bid or purchase on any sale conducted. And whoever's the highest bidder gets the property. At the general manager's discretion, the remaining surplus property may be offered at the next surplus sale or at no cost to any interested public or nonprofit entity and disposed of at an appropriate disposal or recycling site if it's basically junk. And Director Hund has made a suggestion that 4.4B be amended to read, at the general manager's discretion, surplus property remaining after being offered for sale may be offered at the next surplus sale or at no cost to any interested or public or nonprofit. Sort of clarifies that surplus property has to be put up for sale unless, Part C, the surplus property is valued at less than $1,000, it may be exempted from the previous requirements. And all proceeds go to the general, will be shown as miscellaneous revenue to the general fund. And 4.6 just restates that officials or employees of the district not personally benefit from the disposal of surplus property. So that's the end of my report. I'll certainly answer any questions. And my recommendation is that it be adopted as amended, as I've just read.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, any comments from the board? Rebecca?
On section 4.6, the surplus property, the old version talks about stuff being unusable and operable and can be sold, traded, donated, salvaged, and district manager have the authority. The new version just says officials or employees of the district are barred from personally benefiting from the disposal of the surplus property.
4.6 in the old is covered by 4.4C.
So that's, okay.
So if it's old, broken, bent, et cetera, it's less than $1,000, it can be disposed of.
Thanks.
How often do we do this?
Well, in the previous one, we did it as seldom as possible because it was so convoluted, but we will be doing this approximately once a year.
No, glad to see you kept the nonprofit entity in there. I think that's important after we do the selling. And just clarification, 4.7 and 4.8 then remaining the same, right?
No, they would be dropped
They
out.
would be dropped. Okay.
Any proceeds received from the disposal of surplus property, 4.7 is covered in 4.5,
Okay.
and it's just moving 4.7 and 4.8 up to 4.5 and 4.6.
I think with the added amendment, I think it looks very good to me.
Gary?
I think it makes it clean and clear and straightforward, and I think it's a good balance between us maintaining some governance, but also giving the general manager discretion where it's needed, and I like the idea of having an option of donating to nonprofits.
And I do have a question. 4.3 starts out surplus personal property. Is it supposed to say personal?
As opposed to real property, as opposed to real estate.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
We
Okay,
will
with
never
that-
have any surplus real estate.
No. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that I recommend that the board approve the updated procedure.
I second.
So, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Seeing no opposition, it is unanimous. Standing committee reports.
Finance Committee has not met since our last meeting, so we don't have, I don't have any comments on that.
And if you haven't met, then neither has water operations, so good on that.
Madam President, just for the sake of clarification for the public and hopefully for you all, because the next regularly scheduled finance and water resources operations are on January 30th, I'm going to propose that those committees meet on the 23rd, because the next board meeting is like February 1st or 2nd, and so anything that we discuss on the committee meetings, I'd like to have a week's time to prepare for bringing it forward to the full board, if that meets your schedules.
That works for me. I've checked it already.
If it works for the public, it works for me. Not good for Tom, not good for Steve.
So the next, it's the 23rd then, January 23rd?
For finance and.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
and what about the legislative committee meeting? We're scheduled to meet February 1st. When are we meeting?
February 1st.
February 1st.
Okay. Let's say so, okay. Okay, legislative and public information. Kathleen?
Our next meeting will be February 1st.
Thank you.
Yes, it's a great new year. We have a lot of things planned for the first half of 2017, but briefly, I just want to mention that Friday, January 20th at 10 a.m., the docents will be meeting again as we start moving forward to make preparations for Water Education Day and other events coming in. Also, this spring, we are launching our grant-paid-for district tours. So if you know of anyone or can recommend anyone that would benefit from these incredibly informative tours, please get their name to me or have them call in and just ask to be added to the consideration list for the tours. I don't have dates yet, but they will be coming up this spring. And then, just for those who are tuning in on the DVD, watching the DVDs, we will be soon launching an online water conservation school, and it will have the benefit of a reward of wonderful little water conservation things to help you save water as we move into the new year with probably new mandates. So just stay tuned for that, and I'll keep you apprised of when that is ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. General Counsel report.
My report tonight, Madam Chairman, will be devoted strictly to our closed session. This has to be at least a 30-minute one, I would guess.
Okay. General Manager.
Next slide.
Oh,
So, water conservation. All right, so in November, our conservation figures compared 2016 compared to 2013 was 6%. And then rains came and people quit watering. So in December, we consumed 19%, we produced 19% less than we produced in 2013. Our cumulative savings from June to December, which is what the state was watching, is 17.16. Our mandatory conservation is 0. Our voluntary conservation target was 20, and we're pretty close to 20%. The public continues to conserve water and carry buckets of water, gray water, to water their trees and other such things. So we'll see what the state comes up with in January or February for water conservation being a way of life in California. We do not know what's coming out yet, so I think we've done well. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, that's also 19% less revenue. And that's the end of my report because we have a closed session.
okay. Item number 12, future director meetings and training opportunities. The Mojave Water Agency Board of Directors is January 12th. That's Director Hunt. And ASB-CSD, that's the Special Districts Dinner. I'm proposing that we do that in a round robin. This one is Rancho Cucamonga. I'm going to go to that. Anyone else wishes to go is fine. But that's Kathy Teagues, who is the president of Aqua, is on that board. So I'm going to go to support her because I really like Kathy. So that is taking place on the 23rd. And we will go to item number 13, director reports on meetings attended, comments, future agenda items. We'll start with Rebecca.
I have no reports on meetings attended, but Happy New Year, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no meetings attended, but I'd like to ditto that. Happy New Year, and look forward to a successful and prosperous 2017.
Good. Victoria.
No meetings attended. I would like to comment on Mr. Sullivan's comment about the question on ethnicity. It says when you apply for the water that it asks that, but it says it's 100% voluntary. You don't have to answer it, but we're required to put it on there. But it is voluntary. Other than that, Happy New Year. Look forward to a great year.
So I'll add to the Happy New Year to everyone. And, thank you all, members of the public that came tonight. I did want to comment briefly on an article in the Washington Post today. It's on the state's pending plan, making water conservation a way of life. And according to the Washington Post article, it could be finalized in January. And the impetus for it, of course, is California is entering its 6th year of extreme drought, and in the article it said the new plan would give each water agency a budget for how much its customers are allowed to use, and each agency's allowance would be based on estimates from state officials of its demographics, population, economy, outdoor temperature, tree canopy and even the rate of water evaporation to determine its need. It did say that many agencies will be forced to purchase costly technology. It'll be interesting to see here. I haven't discussed with Kurt or the board how that might affect us yet. It's interesting that the support for it includes both the Association of California Water Agencies and environmental groups, among others. So there's pretty broad support, and it's building on lessons learned during the drought is what they're trying to do. And what's interesting is they're not telling water districts how to meet their budgets, they're just telling them that they have to stay within their budgets. And if you stay under budget, kudos, I don't know what that means. If you go over budget, the state steps in. That sounds pretty ominous, but the penalty for going over budget is one of the many things that state water officials, lobbyists, and lawmakers will have to negotiate. So that is still in negotiations. I think a really important thing to consider is that scientists, that's my background. I've read a lot about this, climate change and drought, and scientists are saying there's no end in sight for California's drought. The dry stretch that started in 2011 has killed more than 100 million trees, increased chances of wildfires, wiped out farms, etc., dried sections of rivers. So, obviously we all know this. It's a very serious thing. One thing regarding all that new technology is that at one water district, the Molten Miguel Water District in South Orange County near Laguna Beach, which already monitors nearly every drop of water, the cost of new meters, leak detection equipment, and a consulting analyst and increased staff work hours amounted to $78,000 yearly. But there's a quote here: "The investment was worth it," said Joan Lopez, the district's general manager. Leaking water is money down the drain. It's not only the water loss, but also loss of revenue, so it makes sense to do water audits for a variety of reasons. That's all I have.
Excellent. Okay, I'm going to report on the TAC briefly, Technical Advisory Committee, which is a committee of the Mojave Water Agency. And they had 2 reports by USGS on subsidence. And they use satellite images from INSAR to look for areas where there could be clay layers. Because if there's a clay layer, and we're talking about a layer, not something fairly significant, that aquifer may never recover from a drought, resulting in a permanent loss of storage. And they said, which I found really interesting, Lucerne is really the only local area where where subsidence could be an issue, which I thought was pretty interesting. The other thing of interest at that meeting was that you may know SB 1263 is the state bill that will not allow new construction to have hauled water. And Jay Obernolte from the Lucerne area, was against it, and I believe that, I couldn't find it, but I believe he's introduced new legislation which actually would allow hauled water in certain circumstances, because the current law makes a lot of our land that's away from where the water is now worthless, because you can't afford to put water pipes in where your property is. So it really has been a huge burden for a lot of people in this district. So kudos to Jay Obernolte, who has done that. I guess, I don't know him, sounds like he's doing a great job. And the last thing is that Mojave is listing grant opportunities on mywaterplan.com, and they're saying that since the competition for grants is so fierce, they strongly recommend using a grant writer to raise our chances of actually being awarded grants. Yeah, so there are a lot of people out there looking for them, and the information is on the website. With that, where's my agenda for this meeting? Is there anything else on this meeting? We are now going to adjourn to closed session.
Madam Chairman,
Will there be?
because of the nature of the subject matter for closed session, I'm legally compelled to read a pre-closed session statement into the
Okay.
record. And bear with me, if I can read my, I just recently had cataract surgery, and let's see if I can read my writing besides that. This should be noted as a pre-closed session comment for recording purposes. As required by Government Code Section 54956.9, paren E, close paren 2, close paren, the record should reflect that at this time, the board will go into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 to consult with legal counsel on a matter of potential litigation, as noted in item 14 of tonight's agenda. One matter concerning the receipt of a letter from Lane Christensen Company dated December 14, 2016, notifying the Joshua Basin Water District of its intention not to provide any further disinfection work on well 14 on the purported basis of impossibility of performance. Impossibility, period. We are now ready for closed session.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming. Will there be no reportable action, I presume?
It'll be very generic,
Okay.
for obvious reasons.
Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time.